Honourable Craig Foss.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I agree and endorse and join Mr Joyce when he apologised, and I apologise to all those who have suffered through the unfortunate outcomings on the way in which Novopay has played out over recent months, albeit it has got quite a bit better in recent months, but the issues that have been a major concern over recent months, Mr Speaker. School staff, support staff, boards of trustees, principals, you name it, Mr Speaker, have suffered because of what this report released today points to. So, Mr Speaker, I won't get political, as one or two members have, but what I would like to do is just point out some of the facts in the report and actually let the report speak for itself. I do acknowledge members around the House not questioning those who produce the report, and I join them in the professionalism and the standing of the people that are in charge of it. But just a couple of things, Mr Speaker. For example, on page 79, under the section Leadership, the Secretary of Education, I'll quote the first sentence. The two former Secretaries of Education told us that they were clear that final accountability for the Novopay project lay with them. Mr Speaker, that is quite clear. Yes, ministers have responsibilities, of course they do. But ministers, those that have been in a ministerial role or in minister's office, know that ministers rely on the advice that they get from officials in response to questions asked, reports required, cabinet guidelines, etc. There is, perhaps, as this report shows, perhaps some, unfortunately, at least in this instance, that hasn't been able to be relied upon. Because, Mr Speaker, I'll just make the quote again on page 88, which is one of the findings, which quite simply says, bullet point 1, ministers were not always well served by the quality of advice about the project from the ministry. And then point 2, 3 and 4, and Mr Joyce read out point 4, particularly in relation to the 5 June 2012 report, which essentially recommended that ministers sign off on the go live. The assumption, of course, was that advice rested on robust governance, internal audit monitoring, fair, robust, transparent, peer-reviewed, tested reporting, quality controlled, no unintended, perhaps, conflicts of interest, no being captured by processes which in fact started in 2003, as members do, I think, know. The timeline's very interesting. About 8 or 9 ministers have been involved in this Novopay system. So the assumption that advice rests on robust public service ethos, perhaps, is a fair assumption, and not just in education, but across government, across cabinet, across governments. The advice of professional, well-meaning public servants is rested upon and used every single day. Unfortunately, the report here outlines some instances where that does not seem to have been the case, and the Acting Secretary for Education, Mr Peter Hughes, is investigating those matters right now, Mr Speaker. I do note that the Acting Secretary has also just put out a press release, and I do want to take a couple of quotes from that. Essentially, what it does say, the Acting Secretary of Education, Mr Peter Hughes, says he accepts in full the findings and recommendations of the Ministerial Inquiry into Novopay. Further down, we're talking about the system, not just since go live, but the bits leading up to go live and the system as a whole. Here he goes. In the end, those efforts fell well short. The ministry did not have the capacity, the skills, processes and governance for a project of this scale and complexity. There was not enough oversight from the leadership. He repeats, government ministers were not served well by some of the advice and reporting they received, and that is unacceptable. I have apologised to them. I accept that apology, of course, and as Mr Joyce and other speakers have noted, the system is running much better now, perhaps now where it intended to be, albeit there was a bit of the problems with implementation. But sadly, Mr Speaker, many agencies mentioned in the report, both government and outside of government, have in various ways and forms somehow been captured by the changes, the customisation, contracts not being finalised, schedules, customisation have been captured by that, and all that has led up to not robust advice, perhaps misrepresented advice given to ministers, which led to them making the recommendation to their colleagues to pick up on the ministry's advice and to go live. So, Mr Speaker, I repeat, it's unfortunate, and I do generally apologise for all of those, the angst
Order.
and the
Time's expired. Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I was listening from my room.